So I've been talking about quarantine a lot in my previous episodes on the podcast and here on YouTube, but I realized that I haven't really touched on the most important thing, which is the step-by-step process for overseas Filipino worker who intend or is scheduled to fly back to Manila or to the Philippines. Now, a disclaimer, this is based on my actual experience, and I know for different countries you might have a different process, but hopefully these bits and pieces of information that I will be sharing with you guys will help you in any way, especially if you're flying back from Singapore. Okay, step one. So you have decided to go home, and this probably be because your work permit hasn't been renewed or rejected. I'm sorry to hear that. Or you finally decided that you want to go back home, and that's absolutely okay. Regardless of your reason, the first thing that you need to do, of course, is to book your ticket. Now, you have to prepare your wallet for this because, at least from my end, from Singapore to Manila one way, if you're going to book online, the price of the ticket will be so expensive, at least $1,000. So when I was trying to book my ticket with Philippine Airlines, the price of the ticket was 1,195, and that was so expensive. Imagine one way. If you're flying out to Manila, a round trip ticket during peak days or peak months like December, I think the most expensive would be around 800, 900, depending if you want to do Singapore Airlines. But $1,000 for one way, that's just so expensive. But that's just the way it is. It's pandemic, and we just have to bear with that. I think with Cebu Pacific, they offered around 700 plus, but the capacity of your baggage is around 20 kg, which of course, if you're flying back to the Philippines with all of your things, then that's not enough. So PAL, Jetstar, Cebu Pacific, Singapore Air, at the time when I was searching for my booking, I couldn't find any scheduled flights for the date that I was looking for with Singapore Airlines. So I made the decision to stick with PAL since they are offering 30 kg. And then a good friend of mine told me that maybe you should check travel agencies. And that's what I did. So if you're from Singapore, and of course everyone's familiar with Lucky Plaza, then go ahead and drop by any of the travel agencies. I didn't do that. What I did was I called because I didn't want to go out and go to Lucky Plaza. I'm just being careful and cautious. So I called and I texted, and they replied that they do have an available flight on that day, and the price, I think at that time it was 1,100 or 1,095. It's still very steep. It's still very expensive. But Kuya from Lucky Plaza said that he can bargain with Philippine Airlines or the controller. So he asked me to reserve the ticket. He gave me a reservation, and then he said that he will go back, he will return, or he will confirm with me after 24 hours if the price would still be that 1,000 or it's going to be lower than that. So after a day, Kuya from Lucky Plaza came back via text that Philippine Airlines slashed the ticket price to 690. That is a huge discount considering that it was originally 1,095. So if you are looking to book your flight probably a week in advance, just go ahead and drop by any of the travel agencies at Lucky Plaza. I think I checked two travel agencies, and I finally stick with Kabayan, which is also based in Lucky Plaza. So go ahead and do that because you can save a ton. But that is a good alternative if you're trying to save on your fare. So now that you have booked your flight, the next thing that you should be doing is to make sure that you are a member of OWA. So OWA is the Overseas Welfare Association for overseas Filipino workers. So Overseas Workers Welfare Association. I think I got confused there. So it's a membership program for all overseas Filipino workers, and they have really good benefits, and I just found out about it when I got the booklet or the brochure. But it's imperative that you are a member of OWA, and I would assume that all of us overseas Filipino workers are members of OWA. But if you're like me and you missed out activating your membership, or at least you missed out on the payments, because normally, like for Singapore, we would normally renew our OWA membership every time we renew our passport. I don't know what happened, but the last payment that I did was back in 2013. So this is embarrassing, but I was so scared to go back home, especially in this time of pandemic, because I'm not sure whether I will be covered since my membership is no longer active. I tried searching about this information online and I couldn't get a concrete answer as to what will be the case. And even when I called the Philippine Embassy in Singapore, they said that I should be covered, but it is beyond their control as to what's going to happen as soon as I entered NAIA, or what the process will be, since a lot has changed since the start of the pandemic and there have been some updates with the ground rules. So being a member of OWA is a requirement for you to be covered when you go back home to get the benefits such as the quarantine facility, food, accommodation, and transportation, including the swab test or the PCR test. So it's really important that you are a member, or in this case, you have been a member of OWA. So I have paid, I think, 2 memberships. So it renews every 2 years. And then after that, I didn't pay. My registration or my membership is no longer active. But if you have been a member of OWA, then that is absolutely okay. To be sure, just to be sure that you won't have the same anxiety that I had prior to my flight to the Philippines, make sure that your OWA membership is updated and active. That way, everything will be smooth and you don't have to worry whether you're covered or not. And of course, it's for your protection as well. So make sure that your OWA membership is updated. Now that you know that your OWA membership is active, the next thing that you should be doing is to go to these 2 websites. The first one is oasis.owa.gov.ph. I'm going to list that down, as well as balikpilipinas.ph. They will be asking you certain questions like where you will be staying, your passport details, your work here or your work abroad, and some particulars, of course, that are relevant to you and your identity. So this is their way of checking and tracking the overseas Filipino workers, and also a way for them to register you so that you will be entitled to the PCR test or the swab test, as well as the facility where you will be staying for your quarantine. So it's very straightforward. Everything that you need, you just need to fill in the boxes, tick the boxes, and provide your details, and you're good to go. Now, on the day of the flight, if you're flying out, if you're flying to the Philippines with Philippine Airlines, you need to make sure that you have a face shield. In Singapore, we don't really use face shield. The government is providing us with mask. So I had to look for a seller in Carousel to provide it where I can get the face shield. But good thing, my friends who works for insurance companies in Singapore, they do have extra face shields. So managed to get 2 from a good friend, Joel and JF. And it's mandatory that you do have your face shield prior to boarding the plane. When you sign into balikpilipinas.ph, you will be given a QR code. So I would recommend to print that out. They didn't really ask for this from at the airport, but I think they will be asking for this on my swab test. So just a precaution. I mean, there's no harm in just printing it out. So just go ahead and print that out. Now, on the day of your flight, I would recommend to really weigh your luggage. With Philippine Airlines, they have 30 kg allowable baggage included in your ticket. The maximum that you can check in is 32 kg per bag. Now, we did weigh my luggage prior to going to the airport. Upon weighing the luggage at the counter, I was surprised because it's 38 kg. So I need to remove 6 kg from the luggage and put it in my carry-on, and that was really exhausting because I think I had to do it thrice to make sure that it's only 32 kg for that one check-in luggage. And so I had a lot of bags with me. Good thing I have my tote bag. So that's another tip, you guys. If you are flying out, make sure that you have an extra foldable bag in your carry-on, just in case that you will be asked to get some of your things from your check-in luggage. That way you don't have to pay because it's quite expensive. It's 20 Singapore dollars at a time per kg. So imagine 6, so that would be 6 times 20, so that's going to be 120. That's a huge amount of money. So make sure that you weigh your luggage. I would recommend to have some buffer when you are packing your things. And the counter, they will give you a form that you need to fill up. So same thing, your particulars, details, where you will be staying, uh, and you need to give that, you need to make sure that you fill that in, you fill that up, and you will be given that paper to the ground staff before you enter the gate. During your flight, make sure that you have a pen, because you will be filling in a lot of documents like health declaration, other forms, of course, customs and all that. So make sure that you have a pen with you. And my experience with PAL was really good. The flight wasn't packed. I think it's a brand new plane, and I didn't have anybody beside me. I didn't have anyone in front of me, and then at the back, I think there was only one person. So I think there were only, from what I heard, there were only around 35 passengers at that time. So really few. And I think it's good that it's not packed, because they're being very cautious with the number of people flying out. And maybe considering justification of the price, I guess, so your fare is sort of compensating for the people who are not on board. Kinda. I think that's why it's really pricey. And I'm not sure how many flights Philippine Airlines has for on a daily basis. I think from what I've seen on the website, there's only one. It's 2:30 p.m. Okay, so when you're at the airport, they will ask you to be segregated between land-based and sea-based OFW. There are people, ground staff, who will accompany you towards where you're supposed to go, and it's very efficient. I was surprised that they have people really lined up to accommodate you and to help you, assist you as to where you should be going. And you can really tell that the government did try their best to make sure that we are protected, that everyone is protected, whether you're an OFW or a tourist. So at the airport, they will be providing you with food, which is a plus since we were all exhausted. And then they will give you, they will collect one of the forms that you signed while you're on the plane, and they will tell you where you should be going. Now, this part is interesting because I've been hearing horror stories from people I know, that because I have a friend, she was pregnant at a time when she came home, and she was placed in Eurotel. And so that was one of my prayers, that I will be placed in a facility which has good Wi-Fi, and I would say some comfortable place where I can do and create and I can rest. So we were told that it's gonna be Linden. So I was really surprised because I know that place and it's in Ortigas, and I'm really grateful because some of my friends who flew, I think a day after, they were placed in a different facility that was not that comfortable, not as clean as Linden, and basically she was frustrated. You're flying back, I think you have the option to pay for your own, but this is not bad at all. Being placed in Linden as the government accredited quarantine facility, for me, I'm really grateful for that. The part that's kind of will probably frustrate some of the OFWs flying back would be the entire process from the airport to the quarantine facility, because it takes a really long time. So we landed around 6:10 p.m. I arrived at the hotel, managed to settle in at about 10:30 p.m. So it's a total of almost 5 hours of processing. And I understand that they're being very thorough, but just to set your expectation, it will take about around that time, 4 to 5 hours of wait time from traveling from the airport to the facility, and then waiting there, making sure there will be IATF who will check in with you and make sure that your baggages, your bags, your luggage, they're all sprayed and cleaned up before you get your hands on them, and then you will be transitioned to your hotel room. So I was really exhausted that day, but grateful that we have been placed in, I think this is one of the good ones, or good quarantine facilities that the government assigned. So really grateful for that. Now at the hotel, so we were given house rules mandated by Bureau of Quarantine, and they said that smoking and drinking is not allowed. It has a penalty of 10,000 pesos. Any deliveries such as food deliveries, Grab, Food Panda, items or gadgets are strictly not allowed. Now, this one we have been assured by OWA that they will be allowing this deliveries. We just have to be very discreet because the hotel is not allowing it. So every time that we have delivery, we'll just need to advise them and contact them, and they will be the one to send over the deliveries to us. So that's very kind of them to do that. And so far, all the deliveries are coming to us, Lalamove, Grab, Food Panda, etc. And there is also something listed here that groceries and from family and relatives can only be delivered 9 a.m. to 11 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They're very lenient with this as well, and you can definitely ask your family members to bring something for you any time of the day. Probably the latest would be 7 p.m. Of course, they also need to rest. My swab test will be done on the 7th day while I'm here at the hotel, and I will be released on the 10th day, which I think will be on the 15th. And since it's a 14-day quarantine, then the 4 remaining days will be completed in my own home, in this case at my brother's place. Okay, I realize that I haven't really shown you the room, or haven't given you a room tour yet, so here we go. This is Linden Suites, and I have a really nice view of Ortigas. Right there is Mega Mall, and I think that's San Miguel, if I'm not mistaken. View of the room, as you can see, the bed, and yeah, I really love the view, especially during sunset. You have an area here for your workstation, and then they have a refrigerator. You have your little area there where you can make coffee or tea. In my case, it's tea. And then, okay, here we go. Hello. Okay. It's just a giant room, and then they provided 2 containers of water to have your cabinet. And let's go to the bathroom. Okay. And hi. All right. So pretty much the standard things that you will see in a hotel bathroom, and that's just it.